Hello, welcome to Tales of Dread. Tonight we have some true horror stories for you from park rangers. So enjoy and don't forget to like, share and subscribe. In the 1970s and 1980s, I worked as a park ranger for Yellowstone. I've seen some things you'd never believe. The scariest thing I've ever seen was a dead grizzly bear that had been cut up. I saw it while I was on patrol. This was a very wrong turn. Since there was no blood, whoever was there must have been found and killed somewhere else. The grizzly bear looked like it had been cut open from its ribs to its private parts. His internal organs were gone. You could see all the way into his stomach. When I went to the site, I saw drag marks and bloody footprints. Even though they weren't made with just a knife, the cuts were strange. They looked like they were made with a laser or another type of cutting tool that gets very hot. I'm not sure, so I went back to the police station and called for help. We looked everywhere, but we never found anything that could have helped us figure out what was going on. I still don't know what or who killed the grizzly or why. Still, I'll never forget it. One of my colleagues suggested UFOs, but I'm not that out there with my beliefs. One of my co-workers even suggested that a mythical creature called a wendigo could have killed it. I do know that there are stories about a way to go, but I never saw any evidence to thoroughly support this notion. But I never really went out to look for Bigfoot. I do, however, have my own Bigfoot story to tell you. I was doing my rounds one day when I saw a Sasquatch. This happened a long time ago, and I wrote about it in my journal. Because of this, I remember it. I remember that it was very foggy and hard to see, but I saw a big hairy animal that was hunched up in a tree. I yelled at it because I thought it might be a person. It jumped down and ran away at very fast speeds. It was the most exciting thing I've ever done. I wish I had gone with it, but I was just as scared as I was surprised to see a real Bigfoot in Yellowstone after that. I was reading almost everything I could get my hands on that went into detail about Bigfoot. I even belonged to the BFRO, is an organization that does research on Bigfoot. John Green and Lauren Coleman were two people I looked up to a lot. I had even read their famous book, Bigfoot. I even had the chance to go to a conference for people from all over the world in Colorado Springs. That's when I was able to talk about the large hairy animal that looked like an ape and was hunched up in a tree when I saw it in Yellowstone. After that, I'll always believe in Bigfoot, even though I've never seen him again. The first time I saw him will always be with me. Even though I do think Bigfoot exists after seeing it, I still don't believe in UFOs, unlike many people in the Bigfoot community. I stopped working as a park ranger in the late 1980s and started doing ministry work and teaching. I am and have been a pastor, but I don't think there aren't wild animals out there, about which we don't know anything. I was a search and rescue officer for a short time in 1999. We had a situation where a hiker went missing and his body was later found miles away, high on a steep mountainside. The point of this story is to tell you what I've learned. If you go hiking or plan to go hiking in the near future without being fully prepared for emergencies, it's likely that you won't be found alive until a long time later. This doesn't happen as rarely as many people think, and it certainly doesn't happen rarely outside. So the best thing you can do is get ready ahead of time. Every year, thousands of people go missing. It's always a good idea to be ready. Anyway, we heard that this man hadn't been seen since the morning, and that the last time he was seen, he was at one of the main trailheads. So we started to look for him. As rescue officers, the first thing we do is call for a helicopter to fly over the area. This is done to see if there are any things that stand out. We could have lost. The next step is to send a couple of officers to the person's last known location to look for their car. We find the car, and there's nothing really strange about it. We can't find anything that would help us with our investigation. We find the last place they were known to have hiked. We started hiking up the trail, and as we go, we're getting more and more worried. We do start to walk faster though. Now, we search hard for him, for about 5 miles by yelling his name. There's no answer, of course. I tell the chopper to cut a different flower. We did find one piece of evidence, which was a shoe that he owned. In the end, forensics and a shirt that was torn up and covered in blood backed that up. After that, the dogs couldn't find him anymore. We've been looking for them for 9 hours, and a helicopter has flown over the area twice. Even though we had the best search dogs in the area, there was no sign of him. We were almost done with the search, and I was about to call it off myself when one of my officers told me that they thought they might have found his body parts. They found pieces of the skull, 3 ribs, and a couple of spine vertebrae, but they were all bleached white and very clean. A few miles from where he had been last seen, he was resting by a tree on a steep mountain slope. They were able to find the bones on top of a ridge and bring them back. They were only a couple of miles from where the trail started. Because they were stuck in the base of a tree, no one had found them before. A few thoughts. D came to the conclusion that the remains were in fact his, NA. Even though he had been gone for less than 24 hours, no one could explain how his bones could be so close to where the trail started. How could they have been so clean? Who or what got them up here to the top of this ridge? And many, many more questions. Everything about the case was very strange. I know that this kind of thing happens a lot. I mean, how does a person go from being alive to having his bones cleaned and bleached in more than 12 hours? Anyway, hikers should always bring with them a map, a compass, a first aid kit, a cell phone, weather, appropriate clothing, food, water, survival tools, a knife, a headlamp, a flashlight, waterproof matches, a space blanket, a whistle, a fire starter, and a reflective safety vest. These are the most important things to do just in case something goes wrong. I hope that if you decide to read this, the people who watch or listen to you will hear this and pay attention. Be careful when you go into the woods to hike, camp, hunt, or do whatever else you want to do. I'm a search and rescue officer, and it's not unusual for me to find bodies in the woods, whether they were killed by accidents or by themselves. The harder it is to get to a place, the farther away it is. People often think about this when they see something like a dead body in the woods. But the bodies where something bad happened are the ones that scare me the most. I can't even count how many people, especially women, have gone missing in this area over the years. People get used to seeing the same names on the list of missing people. People often talk about the fact that this or that person is still missing. And I think that's why it's become so common for people to think there's something else going on. This is also part of what made books like Missing 411, which I love, possible. He has to deal with a lot of things. Over the years, a lot of people have gone missing and have never been found. So, the idea of a person going missing and then being found somewhere else in an unrecognizable state is hard for some people to accept because it would mean that they were dealing with a different kind of evil. Most people are comfortable with the idea that there are evil or demonic forces in the world. So, there are a lot of other people who feel like they're close to something they shouldn't be close to. I think that's why so many people in your community have had similar experiences. I mean, I know there are a lot of theories about who or what is going on in these woods and who is taking these kinds of people. I mean, we still don't know. Some people think it's Bigfoot, and if you listen to the stories they tell, it sounds like some kind of hairy monster is taking them away. Other people think it's aliens. We have also seen UFOs in this area. So yes, there is a lot of strange stuff going on in the area. But the truth is that I don't believe in either of them. I believe in the world outside of people. I think the answer has a lot more to do with reality than that. I think it's much more likely that it has to do with people or animals than with some kind of evil from outside the world. From my point of view, it's like if you were the parent of a little girl who went missing for 3 days and was found dead in the woods, miles away from where she was last seen. What do you do if you don't know who did that, or if it was a person or an animal? Do you try to find the animal that did it or the person that did it? I think it's more likely that it was done by a person, because I don't think we can understand that kind of evil when it comes from an animal or an alien. People have a hard time understanding that. So I think that's why some people think it's an animal, let's talk, when they find dead bodies in the woods. As I've already said, I've seen all kinds of terrible deaths. A bear had torn one guy to pieces. I've seen people die because they were out in the elements. And yes, suicides are the worst thing by far. I know of 2 suicides that happened in the woods in my area right now. One was a younger man who had been on the high school track team. I don't know what happened exactly, but I do know that he was found hanging in the woods and that there was a loaded shotgun at his feet. I don't know why he didn't use it. I'm not sure. Another story that will stick with me is about a young man with Down syndrome who got lost in the woods and died there after being exposed to the elements. It was not a suicide, but it was still very sad. I think that is the worst thing that could happen. It's not the most horrifying thing, but it is sad. I think we all feel like we could get lost in the woods when we go there. But when I think about how a person with Down syndrome got lost and died out there, and how that stays with me, I realize that this is sometimes a very emotional job. But you'll also find things like a cult killing people and animals in a ritualistic way. Yes, they do happen more often than you might think. I chose to go camping on Friday night because I'm an introvert and like to be alone when I'm not at home. I thought it would be a fun way to spend the night and evening. I got my stuff together and went a few miles off the trail. I was a little worried, but I tried to think about the good things. When I got there, I was the only person on the trail, and it seemed pretty empty. I was glad because this walking path is usually very busy, even in the beginning of fall. I like being by myself, and the rest of the afternoon went by without any big events. I forgot to bring anything to start a fire, which is the only problem. I wanted to go camping because I'm the kind of person who doesn't feel comfortable around other people. I wanted to spend my Friday night alone in the woods with nothing but the sounds of nature to keep me company. I was about to start a fire when I realized I didn't have any kindling. I took the time to look around, but I couldn't find any kindling that would actually work. Many of these things were wet. So 20 minutes after the sun went down, I heard a branch break. I've been trying to start a fire for a while with kindling that was mostly wet, but I hadn't had any luck. I stopped to listen to the sound of leaves and branches moving. I was a little worried about being alone in the woods with just my small tent and camp lantern. I was a little scared, but mostly because I didn't have a fire, and I heard the sound again, but this time it seemed to be getting closer. I was sure that someone was following me, so I got my knife and pointed my lantern in the direction of the sound. A raccoon came out from behind the leaves, and his tiny black eyes sparkled in the light. I let out a sigh of relief and started to kind of laugh, because I thought it was nothing. But then I heard rustling coming from behind the tree, about 20 feet to my left. It was something much bigger. I turned around with my knife ready and saw a huge black wolf come out from behind the tree and charge straight at me. I didn't even have time to scream, but the sound of my heart beating in my ears drowned out the sound of my own voice. I set my lantern down and ran back to the camp. With my knife still raised, I stumbled once, but managed to clear the camp. I tried to get into my tent, but this wolf was already surrounding me. I turned to look at him, and his eyes were like glowing white orbs in the dark. I had the strong feeling that he wanted to kill me, so I closed my eyes and heard the sound of his paws moving away. So I quickly zipped up my tent and had my knife ready. The rest of the night all I could hear was my own breathing. I'm going to tell you now, I did not sleep a wink that night. The next day, when I got up, my lantern was broken and lying on the ground. There was also a big dog paw print next to it, so I knew for sure that I'd seen what I thought I did. So, my question is, why did a dire wolf attack me? When I was out with some friends, we decided to go hiking in the woods. We get maybe a mile or less down the trail, I don't know. We were all laughing and talking loudly until we saw two guys coming down the trail toward us. We got closer to them, and I had a strange feeling. They didn't say anything, and they moved like robots, but they didn't sound human either. Almost. Even one of my friends felt the same way. It felt like my energy was being taken away from me. It seemed like a warning. I saw that the guy walking in front of me didn't have a mouth or eyes, and the guy right behind him didn't have a face either. We all ran away as soon as they were out of sight. We all had no idea what they were. I'm not saying they were aliens, but it did cross my mind that they might be. We told a friend, and I think he has seen these same guys in the woods many times. I can only think that they are the ones who are making trouble around here. He has also seen them in the woods and near his house. Then I have another friend who lives on the other side of town near some more woods. I don't know if he saw the same guys as I did. We did or what, but he tells me that he was walking home from a friend's house one night when he saw a tall figure standing in the middle of the road. He says it was about 7 feet tall and had a black cloak on. He said that it was looking at him, and that scared him. He said that he ran as fast as he could and never turned around. He said that he only told a few of us about it. He says that going back to the road scared him. He said it was a person when I asked him if he was sure. I don't know what to think of it. Back in August 2013, you might have been able to. I was on my way to a hunting spot when I stopped the truck and got out. As I was walking away, I saw a very bright light in the sky. It was neither a star nor a planet, and it was standing still. After about a minute of looking at it, I saw that it was getting bigger and brighter. The light then got smaller and dimmer, and then it just went out. I tried to make sense of what I had just seen, but I couldn't. I figured it was some kind of plane, but it didn't move like any plane I had ever seen. It wasn't a helicopter, plane, satellite, or meteor, since it didn't burn up, just got bigger and brighter, then went away. I should have thought to take a picture, but I didn't. I now wish I hadn't done that. I hadn't thought about the UFO I saw in 2013 until the beginning of this year. So I was hanging out with my wife and some friends. One of the guys I was talking to about UFOs, and I told him about the UFO I had seen years ago. He told me that he had also seen a UFO once, so I asked him to tell me about it. He said it was probably just a blimp though. I told him that based on what he said, I didn't think it was a blimp because it wasn't moving like one, and even mine was just getting bigger and brighter and then going away. He told me that when he was younger, he had seen other UFOs and even had pictures of them. I was interested, so I asked him if I could see the pictures. He said he would get them for me. I had my own ideas about what I saw that August morning, but I wasn't sure about what my friend said he saw. I wanted to believe that what he saw was just an airplane. I guessed that he thought what he saw was a blimp, but it turned out to be a UFO. I really wanted to look at his pictures and see how they compared to what I had seen, so it takes him about a week to get them to me. I looked at them and saw that they were not a blimp at all. They were strange pictures of UFOs. At first, I didn't know what I was looking at, but after studying and analyzing these pictures, I realized it was an unidentified flying object. When I showed the pictures to my wife, she said she thought it was a UFO that had been caught in the middle of the woods. My friend, who gave me the pictures, and I were both shocked. I mean that we had never seen anything like this picture before. We didn't know what it was. We probably both thought the same thing, but neither of us said anything. We just looked at each other. A few other people have seen the pictures, and they all agreed that it is a UFO. I haven't decided yet whether or not I'll keep the pictures, but I'm thinking about it. I don't know if I want proof of what I saw and the chance of being called a liar or crazy. I could put the pictures on the internet, where they might get some attention, or I could sell them and make $1 million. I'm not sure. Even though it happened almost 8 years ago, I'm still trying to figure out what I saw. I'm not sure if it was a UFO or not. I mean, this wasn't my first time seeing a UFO, but it had been a long time since I'd seen one. I'm not sure if I'm just becoming more aware, or if they're becoming more active, but I'm not sure I'm ready for the changes that are coming. I'm not sure what to think, but I hope they're not bad aliens. I hope they aren't here to hurt us or take over our land. I hope they can help us out. I think we're almost ready to find out who they are. I think we're almost ready to find out the truth. I'm ready to find out what's out there for real. I want to know what happened that day, in August. I just hope it's not something bad. I live in the West Tennessee mountains. Since 2 years ago, I've been seeing things in my backyard. I've seen a tall, big black creature with glowing eyes and a lot of hair. From the tree line, it was watching me. I've also seen something with 2 legs and red glowing eyes that was chasing my dog. I've seen this exact creature many times in the last couple of years. I've also seen a large black cat walk across the front road. It looked about the size of a large dog, and I think it might have been a panther. It was moving very quickly. I've also seen a different kind of big black hairy animal coming toward my house at night in my backyard. Since October 2020, I have seen this particular animal about 5 times. I have seen this thing from maybe a distance of 330 feet, so I know it's not the same. It wasn't a bear, and it wasn't a dog either. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's real or if it's a spirit. If it's a spirit, I don't know if it's a good spirit or a bad one, or if it's evil or good. I don't know if it's here to help me or hurt me, even though I've only seen it from a distance, and it has never tried to hurt me. I have no idea why it's here. What it wants, I don't know. We do have a lot of thick woods out here, so this thing could easily hide and stay out of sight. A few months ago, while all of this was still going on, my dogs woke me up at 2:33 in the morning by barking and growling. I got up, went to the front door and saw a large black shape running across the road in front of my house. It's going very fast, and a friend of mine who lives about 3 miles down the road has seen the same thing happen many times. When he first saw it, it was crossing the street in front of his house. When it got to the other side of the road, it turned and looked at him. It stopped for a while and looked at him. He said he knew it wasn't a dog because it looked more like a big, weird-looking cat. I told him to report it to the police by calling them. He told me that they didn't trust him. So I called my local sheriff's office and told them what I'd seen. I told them I was sure I'd seen a big black panther. Even they didn't believe me. I live right on the edge of the city of Tullahoma, Tennessee. I've seen this thing many times, including twice in the last week. I'm getting tired of it. So I'm going to try to record it on video the next time I see it. I've had the chance to work as a ranger for a few years, and in that time I've gathered a few stories and experiences to share with you. Some of them are about, and others are about the paranormal. Here's the first one, and still not sure what it all means. When I think about it now, I was working in a park one evening and walking around a large lake nearby when I saw a white figure standing on the other side of the lake. I thought it was a person. So I started to walk toward them, but all of a sudden they were gone. This made me feel scared. So I left when I did. I had never seen anything like it ever. I was sure that it was a ghost, I guess. I'm not the only ranger in this area who is said to have seen ghosts. I'm also easy to scare, so I didn't make my case better. But if you had been there at the time and seen this person kind of fade away like mist, you might have thought it was a trick. You too would have been scared. My second experience was when I saw what looked like a brown-haired man walking along the service road. It stood about 7 feet tall and moved very quickly. I couldn't take a picture of something I saw at 2 a.m, and I was scared. I was actually working the night shift with a co-worker, and I tried to keep up, but I couldn't. It walked on 2 feet and had a lot of hair. It was very big. Like everyone else, I've heard of Bigfoots, but I think this is something else. My third one happened when I was hiking in June and saw a very big footprint in the dirt that didn't look like a person's. I was surprised to learn. This is something I've never seen before. It was the strangest thing I'd ever seen, and I hoped that whoever made it wasn't nearby. I stopped for a while to look at it, and then I went on wood. In the woods, I can tell that the air has changed. They didn't make me feel good. I thought I was in danger and needed to leave. Now I went with my gut and left. By the way, I couldn't tell from the footprint what kind of animal it was. I didn't recognize it as a person or an animal, and it was very big. 4. Someone was trying to break into this man's camper, which was reported to us. I was sent to look into a call at a more popular part of this campground. When I got there, I met an older man who was also camping, but he wasn't the person who had called. But he tells me that at 4 a.m, he heard something strange outside his camper window. He tells me that when he went outside and looked, he saw a big creature with a strange-looking head. It stood about 7 feet tall and was very skinny. It was standing straight up and staring into his window. He says he couldn't move because he was too scared, so he froze. This thing had long, skinny arms and a lot of muscle. He said he was afraid it would break the window and try to get in. So he moved away from the window, got his gun, and hid in his camper under you. I think the animal ran back into the woods and went away. I asked if he had seen it before, and he said he hadn't. I asked him to tell me more about it, and he said it was a mix of a gorilla and something else. He seemed honest, so I believe what he said. Saw the same thing, and the story is very similar. I couldn't do much about the fifth one. Once, I had to look into a report that there might be a body in the water. I was on a lake and looking around when I saw the same lake, the appearance of the ghost. When I saw something floating in the water, I pulled it toward the boat. It turned out to be a small deer carcass, but it wasn't a normal deer carcass. The thing had been cut open. There were no organs, no blood, and even its eyes were gone, but they hadn't been ripped out or gouged out. Instead, they had been taken out surgically. Based on how and what it looked like, this thing could have been in the water for more than a few hours. So I asked myself why anyone would do that. That was a strange one for sure. The next day, on the 6th, I saw Bigfoot again. When I was on patrol, I saw something move in the woods. I couldn't see much because it was dark, but I see this big hairy figure moving quickly through the woods. I want to make a note that this one looked very different from the last one I saw with my colleague. I turned on my spotlight and shone it on the figure. It had a very big head and thick black hair all over it. It was very big and built like a bodybuilder, but the features were bigger and more pronounced. It was hard to guess how tall it was, but I think it was about 7-8 feet tall. This thing wasn't lit up for more than a second before it quickly ran into the trees to hide. You could hear it crashing through the woods as it tried to get away from this light source. So I got my radio and made a call. My co-workers interviewed me, and everyone seemed to believe me, but they couldn't do much. I never saw it again. Okay, number 7. I was patrolling in the woods again in the summer of 2012. I came across a spot with some ropes tied to a tree stump. I couldn't figure out what would have been going on here, so I stopped moving, being careful not to make a mistake. Then I heard a growl, so I slowly moved back toward my car, and I could hear its teeth gnashing together like it was very angry. It happened. Once I left the area, I could no longer see the creature, but I could still hear it. I stopped hearing the growls, but man, that was one of the most scary things that ever happened at work. I have more stories, but these are the ones that come to mind right now. Yes, I've seen and heard a lot of strange things while working in the wildlife efficient game in forest industry. If you think this is a lot, some of my co-workers have told me stories and had experiences that make mine look like kindergarten. Even so, it's a lot of hard work. You should like what you do. If I have more time, I might sit down and write you more stories. People probably tell you a lot of stories about camping in the Ozarks, and to be fair, I know from my own friends and family that a lot of weird, scary things happen up there. I had a strange thing happen to me there the last time I was there. I was camping by myself at the time, and I decided to go fishing at a nearby creek early in the morning. I was walking down the trail when I saw a scared-looking deer run by me. I thought this was a little strange. Usually, a deer won't run up to you as you walk down a trail. It looked like anything, was chasing it. I just shrugged it off and kept walking until I got to the creek. I looked around and didn't see anything, so I set up my fishing gear and started fishing. It was a beautiful morning, and I loved how quiet it was. But when I'm fishing, this strong, musty smell just hits me right in the nose. It was so loud that I had to put down my fishing pole and look around. I didn't see anything, and the smell got worse as time went on. So I walked up a little further to see if I could find the source. I saw a small cave that went under the creek. After taking a quick look around, I decided to go check it out. From the outside, there was enough light coming in that you could get a pretty good idea of how big this room was. So I sort of walked down into it and saw how big it was right away. I mean that a grown man could fit in there. I looked around and saw a lot of bones and even some deer bodies that had died and dried out. Something was definitely sleeping in there, and I can tell you now that it wasn't a bear or a mountain lion. What tells me that? Well, because this isn't how their dens look. This little den would have been great for something else, but not for a bear or a mountain lion. So I walked back to my fishing spot, which was about a quarter mile away, sat down and started fishing again. After a short time, I started hearing voices. I keep looking, but I can't find anything. Then I heard a woman screaming, and I saw that the sky's lighting had changed quickly. Hadn't I been there for more than 2 hours? Because it was starting to get dark. How could this be? I had just left around 8 or 9 a.m., and when I looked at my phone, it was around 10 a.m. I was officially in the bathroom area. I felt scared, so I packed up my things and walked back to camp. I walked back and didn't see or hear anything the whole time. I get back to my camp, start a fire, and decide to cut my trip short and leave first thing in the morning. Somehow, 2 hours became 8 or 10, and I know for sure that I went through a strange time glitch. I know I sound like Alex Jones when I say that, but I'm really good at managing my time, and it would have been physically impossible for me to waste that much time down there without keeping track. From the camp, it only takes 20 minutes to walk down to the creek. Before I went into that cave, I looked at my phone and saw that it was 11:03 a.m. I really don't know what happened out there, but I do know that I will never go back to cancer again. I think I just saw something like a doorway to another time or place open up. I don't know why I couldn't sleep all night. I just had a really bad feeling of anxiety that I couldn't get rid of. I was nervous and uncomfortable. I can't describe it. I finally fell asleep, but I woke up several times that night feeling like something was watching me from outside my tent. The next morning, when I woke up, one of my fishing poles was broken and my gear was all over the place. I just said screw it and left. I won't be going back there. I mean, I'm sure that my poles breaking and my stuff being torn and thrown everywhere was just a coincidence. Yes, indeed. I won't go back there because my friend was there the last time I camped there. Since then, I haven't gone that high up in the mountains. I don't know what kind of crazy X-Files stuff I saw, like aliens or beings from other dimensions, but no thank you.